Just going to leave it for a few seconds for everybody to join, and then we're going to start. Okay, let's get started. So welcome everybody to our first webinar of 2024. I hope you all had a great time over the holidays and came back refreshed and ready for the year. We certainly have. And I hope you've all joined the right live stream today. We'll talk about that in just a second. So we recently released a major update to our Chocolatey for Business endpoint management solution, Chocolatey Central Management. And with that update came improvements to the dashboard, consistency and polish in the user interface, and a massive update to the product documentation. There was also a huge update to deployment plans and steps, and we've made it easier to update outdated software across all of your Chocolatey endpoints with a few clicks. So today we're going to take you through not only this momentous update, we'll also be looking at some exciting ways to leverage Chocolatey Central Management in your organization. Before we start, let me tell you how you can keep up to date with all the things that are chocolatey. We run 2 live streams every month on the first and third Thursday, and you can find out more about those on our website at chocolatey.org/events. You can also keep in touch with us by joining us on Discord, subscribing to us on YouTube, or following us on Twitter or X, Blue Sky, Mastodon, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitch. And you can find all those links at the bottom of our homepage, chocolatey.org. I'm joined today by 3 of my Chocolatey colleagues, so let's all introduce ourselves. So first of all, my name is Paul Broadwith, and I'm the Technical Engineering Manager here at Chocolatey Software, and I lead the engineering team that is responsible for the chocolatey products we'll all be looking at today. I'm also joined by Gary Yoon Park, Stephen Valdinger, and James Ruskin as well. Gary, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, absolutely. My name is Gary Ewan Park. I am a principal software engineer here at Chocolatey, and I was part of the team that worked on the recent update to Chocolatey Central Management. So I'm excited to tell you all about it.
Thanks, Gary. James, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm James Ruskin. I'm a senior software engineer at Chocolatey Software, and I'm having fun automating other people's problems away.
Awesome. Thanks, James. And last but not least, Stevie, do you want to introduce yourself and your hat?
Yes. My hat. It's the start of the show, right? No, I'm Stephen Bowdinger, support manager here at Chocolatey Software, and I will be your chef for the afternoon, apparently, because of the hat.
Yeah, don't let Stevie's hat confuse you. We're whipping up automation with Chocolatey Central Management today. We're not whipping up anything chocolate like cakes or anything like that. So, yeah, let's make that clear. If you're not a Chocolatey for Business customer and you like what you see today, you can request a trial of Chocolatey for Business, including Chocolatey Central Management that we'll be looking at today, by going to our website, chocolatey.org, and clicking the big schedule a demo button. We don't engage in any pressurized sales, so you'll not be added to 1,000 distribution lists and be forced to change your identity. That's not how we work. So the format today, we'll see Gary bringing us up to speed with changes that were made recently in Chocolatey Central Management. And then James and Stevie will put Chocolatey Central Management through its paces and show you some exciting ways to manage your Chocolatey endpoints. We'll then have some Q&A at the end. And please use the chat to ask any questions, and we'll either answer them directly in the chat or live here on the webinar, all depending on time and how far we get. But please use the chat to ask those questions and we'll get them answered for you. So let's get started. Gary, do you want to start us off by going through the release of Chocolatey Central Management?
Sure. So let me just go ahead and share my screen here. And Paul, if you can confirm that you can see that.
Yeah, I can see that.
Cool. Okay, so so in this release of Chocolatey Central Management, we made some fairly significant changes to how you can go about creating a deployment plan. That was kind of the core feature or the core function that we were trying to achieve within this release. But before we get into that, I thought we'd give just a little bit of a brief overview of what we're talking about here. What is Chocolatey Central Management? So Chocolatey Central Management is, there's two main things that Chocolatey Central Management is aiming to achieve. One is detailing information about all of the computers that are currently managed by Chocolatey Central Management. So over here on the left, you can click on computers and you can see a list of all the computers that are currently reporting into Chocolatey Central Management. And they're reporting in what packages they have installed, they're reporting in what packages are currently outdated, and some top level information about the computer itself. So once Chocolatey Central Management has all of that information, it can then do stuff. And that stuff, the main focus of that is about keeping your machine up to date with the most recent software or the most recent configuration that you want to deploy onto those machines. And those packages or configuration are deployed to those machines via the concept of a deployment plan. So what is a deployment plan? A deployment plan is made up of a piece of information in terms of what you want to achieve. So in Chocolatey Central Management, there are two ways of doing that. And that's either by doing a deployment step that is a basic deployment step, where all you're doing is running Choco install and then a package, or you can go to an advanced deployment step where you can execute any PowerShell that you want to execute. Now, there's obviously permissions that you can put in place there, so you might not want everyone in your organization doing PowerShell script deployments to all the machines in your network. So you can restrict that to only basic steps, so they're only able to do certain package installations or upgrades.
Gary, could I interrupt just for a second?
Sure.
We've got there's a comment in chat that you're very, very quiet. Someone's actually suggested that your audio might be muted. Could you possibly turn your audio up a bit? It's coming through fine here for me, but maybe it's not coming through on the bits and bytes that hit Zoom.
I've moved my mic closer in the hope that that will help.
Sounds a bit louder for me, so hopefully,
Okay,
if it keeps happening, I'll jump back in. But I'll let you continue. Sorry.
Okay, sorry. So where was I? So a deployment plan has the concept or the information about what you want to achieve. Then we have the concept of, well, where do you want that deployment to occur? And that's where the select target groups of a deployment plan comes into play. So here we need to create a group of computers that you want that deployment plan to end up in, where you want that action to be taken. Now, the way that was done in previous versions of Chocolatey Central Management is that you had to walk over to the group section, and from the group section, you were able to create a new group. And by creating a new group, you could select the computers and or subgroups that you wanted to be within that group. And then once you had that information in play, you could then go to your deployment plan. And within your deployment plan, you can say that I want this action to be taken on this set of machines. And then in a later, again, so that functionality was in the early versions of Chocolatey Central Management. And then we brought in the concept of, once we know what we want to do and where we want to do it, we want to be able to know when we can do it. So we added in the concept of scheduling a deployment plan. So you can specify a start time when you want that action to be taken on all of those machines. So the way that I refer to all of that is I refer to that as the foundational elements of Chocolatey Central Management. When we first envisioned Chocolatey Central Management, we knew what we wanted to do, but we knew that there was a path that we had to follow in order to get there. And that path was building in all of these foundational functionalities so that we can get the end result. So now that we had all of those foundational elements in play, this release concentrated on being able to create those deployment plans in a more structured way and in a slightly easier way than what you're having to do at the minute. Because as of right now, before this release, you would have had to go over and create a group. You would add your computers to that group. Then you would go to a deployment plan. You would add the deployment plan to the step that you wanted it to execute on. And from there, you were able to push that deployment plan out to make it possible to run that deployment plan. So what I'm going to start, so now that we've kind of done that brief introduction, let's jump into the release notes. So the release notes for Chocolatey Central Management 0.12.0 can be found on our website. We put all of our release notes for all of our products onto our documentation site. So all of the features that I'm going to go through just in the next few minutes, kind of central, goes through this central idea of creating deployment plans from a specific context to make it easier to create the deployment plan. So let's just go through them in the order that they are here. So what we said was we wanted to provide the ability to create a deployment plan for a single outdated package on all affected computers. So previously, again, just to go over that again, to do that sort of action before, I would have had to find out what software is outdated on my environment. I would have had to know that this particular package is outdated. I would have then had to drill down into that bit of software to find out all the computers that bit of software is installed onto. I would have had to create a group with all of those computers in it to then be able to create a deployment plan. So there's a lot of steps in there. There's a lot of foundational elements that you have to do in order to achieve the end result. So what we've done now instead is we've made it possible so that you can just go actions, upgrade. So behind the scenes, what's going to happen is that Chocolatey Central Management is going to figure out all of those things that you otherwise would have had to do on your own. You would have had to create that group, add all the computers into it. You would have had to create the deployment plan, add the deployment step, configure the groups, etc. So what we've got here instead is we've got that deployment plan already set up. The basic script has been created so that we're doing a Choco upgrade Jenkins in this case. It's behind the scenes, it's created what we refer to as a temporary group, and that temporary group now contains all of the machines that has that outdated bit of software on it. And with that in play, at this point, I can go back to my deployment plans and simply say, move to ready, and then start the deployment plan. So I'm hoping that you all agree that that is a much more streamlined way of creating a deployment plan for a single piece of software compared to what you previously had to do within Chocolatey Central Management. So the other context that we can do these sort of things in is to provide the ability to create a deployment plan for all outdated packages. So what I did previously was I selected a single bit of software and said, create my deployment plan for that bit of software. But we can also go up to the top here and say, create deployment plan and upgrade outdated software. So that's literally all the pieces of software that are currently marked as outdated on my environment. I'm going to create a deployment plan for all of those. So it'll create all the steps, it'll create all the groups, and then it'll make it up a complete deployment plan that has all of those steps ready to go and ready to be used. So while you could do all of these things with the foundational elements within Chocolatey Central Management prior to this release, again, I'm hoping that you would all agree that it's much quicker and easier to create a deployment plan that has all of this information with a single click on the context that you're wanting to create the deployment plan from now. So the next one is to create a deployment plan directly for a specific computer. So again, this is the concept of a context. So previously you were using the context of a software. So in this case, I might just want to create a deployment plan for a specific computer to do something. I don't know what that something is because I'm not using the context of a bit of a software. But I can go down here and say create new deployment plan. And again, behind the scenes, it'll wire all of those things up. It'll create me a deployment plan. It'll give me a deployment step. Behind the scenes, it will have created the group that I'm targeting for this deployment plan, which in this case is a single computer. But from here, I can then edit that step to do the thing that I wanted to do. So again, it's just that one-click creation of the deployment plan to make it easier to ultimately do what we're wanting to do within our environment. So the next one, provide the ability to create a deployment plan for all outdated packages on a single computer. So this time round, the previous one that we created was for all of the outdated packages on all of our machines, but maybe we just want to create a deployment plan to upgrade the software on a single machine. So it's similar context to the previous one, but it's just a slightly different one, driven from a slightly different location in the web, the web interface for Chocolatey Central Management. So if I say here, upgrade outdated software, I'm going to get a deployment plan that is with individual steps for updating the bit of software, but in this time, it's for a single machine, because again, that was the context that I was driving from. So again, much easier to do with a single click, as opposed to having to step through each of those creations with those foundational elements. And I'll skip this one and go to this one first. I'll come back to that one, but provide the ability to create an empty deployment plan directly from a specific group. Similar to what I did before when I created a deployment plan for a computer, I can also do the same thing for a specific group. So at this point, this one's less impressive than some of the others, but essentially what we're doing here is we're creating a deployment plan with a step targeting that single computer, ready for you to provide the context of what you want to achieve in that deployment plan. Again, it's just, again, a single click action as opposed to having to do multiple foundational elements to build that deployment plan up. And the final feature that I showed on the release notes, I want to come back to. So on the groups now, you'll find that there is a duplicate option. So as you're managing your groups within Chocolatey Central Management, there's now a duplicate option. So if I wanted to duplicate this one, it will bring in all of the configuration and give it a copy name. So in here, I could just call this copy servers. And at that point, it's brought in all of the information about what computers were in that group. And then I maybe needed to duplicate it because I wanted to add one extra computer in. So I can bring that computer in. And again, it's just easing the flow and making shortcuts around the things that you're wanting to achieve. Okay. So hopefully all of that made sense. And I'm hoping that Paul would have interrupted me if there was any questions, but if there are any questions, feel free. What I'm going to do next is I'm not going to go through every single bug fix that we introduced within, or not, I'm not going to go through every single bug fix that we provided a solution for within this release. But what I will mention, Paul, is that we do have a link, or we might have a link to the release stream that we did where we went through all the bug fixes in more detail. So if anybody's interested in the ins and outs of what exactly all the bug fixes were, there is a video that you can go back and listen to and watch back. But what I was going to do is go through
I'll
some
add that
of the
to the
improvements.
Chat. Gary, I was just, you mentioned, actually asked if there was a question, and somebody had asked the question, will the temporary group, and in quotes, it's got self-upgrade during deployment if a new PC with outdated software comes to CCM?
So that's a good question. And the short answer is, at this point, no. Okay. But let me give you a little bit of insight into what we've got going on there. So the temporary groups that are being created at the minute, they are, again, they are almost a foundational element, again, of what we are building towards. So at the minute, temporary groups are a mechanism for us behind the scenes within Chocolatey Central Management to provide the functionality that we're trying to achieve here. So you can't actually directly interact with a temporary group that we've created when we've created one of those deployment plans. Those temporary groups will eventually be deleted from the system, so there's no concept of keeping them updated. But in my head, I'm making a distinction between what we've referred to as, we've got within Chocolatey Central Management, you have the concept of what we refer to as an automatic group. So this automatic group, for example, will be automatically kept up to date as new computers come into your system. So this group will always be up to date with any new computers that come into your environment. The temporary groups are the clue's in the name. The temporary group are intended to be temporary within the system. But what we've got on the roadmap for Chocolatey Central Management is another type of group, which naming's hard, but what we're working with at the minute is smart groups or dynamic groups. And at that point, those are the groups that would be dynamically updated as your environment changes. So we have plans for that, and what that will mean for Chocolatey Central Management will be in future releases, but it's not included within this release, no. But it is something that we're thinking about. Was there any other questions before I continue, Paul?
There are other questions, Gary, but I don't think any that will ask. Oh, someone's actually just asked, how long do temporary groups stay available? That's a good question, actually.
Sorry, say that again. I missed that. I was coughing.
How long do the temporary groups we've just talked about, how long do they stay available?
Off the top of my head, I can't remember. It's not a configurable duration. It's something that is we control that duration within Chocolatey Central Management itself. But a group is a collection of computers. It's not a heavy object. It's just an object that we use for the purposes of deployment plans.
Gary has dropped off there to cough a lot, I'd imagine. We've got other questions that are coming through the webinar just now. Sorry, the chat just now. So we've answered the how long do the temporary groups stay available. That is something we're looking to make configurable in the future. But oh, Gary's back. There we go. That was enough padding for you, Gary.
Apologies. There was a little bit of coughing going on there, but I'm all good.
I think what I was going to say, Gary, is I think with the questions that I've kind of put there are other questions, but we'll answer them in chat because we're kind of running up to the time that we were going to hand over to Stevie and James. I don't know if you've got a couple of features you want to call out specifically in the release notes, and then we'll hand over to Stevie and James.
Yeah, all I was going to hear is kind of call out a couple of the improvements that we've made. So a couple of the ones. So within the group section, previously it wasn't possible to get any further information about a group without going into the edit screen. So what we've made possible is we've created a details group. Sorry, a group details page similar to the computer details and the software details page. So this page will show you more information in a kind of a more standard format for the Chocolatey Central Management in terms of what groups are within the group and what computers are within the group. And from here, you can take the same actions that you could in the previous screen in the groups section. Other ones that I wanted to call out were the ability to duplicate steps. So if you had a deployment plan where you have done some work, you've maybe auto-generated it with the new functionality, or you're doing your own work to create those steps, we've provided the duplicates option directly in here. So you can, for any deployment step, you can create a duplicate of it to then be able to configure it, maybe slightly tweak it as you need to go. So again, it's just the ability to take actions quicker than you would have been able to do it in previous releases. And I think there was one other one that I did want to call out, which was so again, in terms of providing as much information as possible. So for a single bit of software, we now include information about how many machines that software is installed on at this level. So rather than having to go off and find information and correlate information, we're bringing information about the software up to the details page as well. And I think that was all that I wanted to say in terms of going through the release notes. So if there are any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A section, and I will get to them when I can.
Yeah, myself, Stevie and James have been answering some of the questions. What we're going to do now is go and speak to James and Stevie and let them go through some of the Chocolatey Central Management stuff. So thanks, Gary, for taking us through that. Hopefully we've all an understanding of some of the fantastic new features in Chocolatey Central Management. James and Stevie are going to take us through some exciting use cases that you may recognize from your own organizations. James and Stevie, over to you guys.
Let's see. There we go. Perfect. All right. Thanks a lot, Gary, for taking us through all that stuff. Pretty awesome. The new features in central management, right? We've added a lot of things recently that have made it really, really user friendly and really, really quick to get work done in your environments. And one of the things that you might have noticed as Gary was going through things was groups are very not difficult, but interesting to work with within central management. You can create them very, very quickly for certain scenarios, but there's no integration with an external system, right? So if you've got something like Active Directory or SECM collections, or maybe something like a CMDB of some sort, maybe ServiceNow or some other inventory management tool where you're grouping your computers, you want to keep those things in sync with what's going on inside of your central management deployment, right? So one of the ways that we can do that is through the use of the central management API. The API is extremely powerful. There's a ton of features available inside of it, and we're going to take a look first at just creating a group with the API. So what I'm going to do is switch over to VS Code here. And I've already written a couple of functions to go ahead, James.
Sorry, just to check. Are you sharing your screen?
I'm probably not. Let me see if
You're not, Stevie.
I'm not. Okay, why?
You're baking cakes. You were carried away
Is
with
it-
baking those chocolate cakes today. That's what the problem is.
Can you see it now?
Can indeed.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, because Zoom said I was sharing, but apparently I wasn't. All right, cool. So anywho, just taking a step back, I was over here, I was staring at this group screen, and I said, we're going to take a look at the API. So I switched over to VS Code, and now we're going to take you through the API. So the first thing I want to show is this add CCM group function. And this is just something I cooked up. It's very, very simple. You just give it the name of a group that you want to create. And if we were to execute this function, what it's going to do, it's going to go off, it's going to invoke the API, and it's going to create that group. Now, it is a little bit fancier than just the name of a group. This actually, you can provide a description for the group if you want to, and then we return that data back to you. But, it's very PowerShell-y. So if you wanted to write something like this in PowerShell, you absolutely can. But again, it's an API, and APIs are pretty universal in terms of what language you use to write them or interact with them. So if you're not a PowerShell developer, you're more of a Python guy or gal, go for it. If you want to write it in C#, go for it. Whatever, it doesn't matter. The API is there. You can do it in whatever language you're most comfortable with. We like PowerShell a whole lot here at Chocolatey, so we do everything in PowerShell that we can. But it's really, really just that simple to start creating groups programmatically. And the nice thing about, and as you can see, there's really not that much code involved. It's, hey, find out what groups, or give me the data that I need. We'll publish it to the group endpoint, and then we'll create that group. And the nice thing is we're also doing a little bit of work inside of here to make sure that you can't create like two groups of the same name, right? That would be extremely confusing if you go in and create a group called old software, old computers, or whatever you want to call it, and then somebody else goes in and happens to create the exact same group later, or reruns your code again, and you have duplicated group. That's ugly. So this actually won't let that happen. So we actually check for the presence of that group before we go creating a new one. So you can add those kind of guardrails as you go and as you write this code as well. Adding groups is just one piece of the puzzle, right? So once you have that group, and if we go over here and just hit refresh real quick, we should see that we have our group API demo group created now, but there are no computers in it. We haven't added any members. So we need to start doing that. So what we can do here is use this add CCM group member function to provide the group that we want to add members to, and then an array of computer names that we want to add to that group. So if we
Stevie,
were, yeah,
Could I
go ahead.
interrupt? Could you zoom your screen a little bit?
I
that it's
can.
looking fairly small here. I don't know what it looks
Oops.
like elsewhere.
Yep, absolutely. Let me see, where is my plus button? How's that? Is that a little
that's
better?
awesome. Yeah, that's a lot better for me. Thank you.
Perfect. Awesome. Cool. All right. So, like you said, we give it the group that we want to modify and then the members of the group that we want to add. So if we were to run this, that'll go off, that'll talk to the API, and we look at central management again, and we go into this group API demo group, we can now see that this contains two computers. And the way that I've written this particular function is it's not additive, or it doesn't take into account what's existing and checking and just adding what it needs to. Whatever is in the members array is what becomes the members of the group. And this becomes, it kind of makes sense to do it right that way, because if you're syncing with an external system like an SCCM collection or an Active Directory OU or some list in a ITSM somewhere like
Sure.
a Landsweeper or whatever, like that's the
difference-
source of truth. You want it to be one for one. If I'm in this OU, I need to be in the central management group. There's no need to do that extra logic. So we don't. This function just says, hey, whatever you give me, I'm going to add to the group. And you can also, make it flexible. If you've got an Active Directory OU or an Active Directory group or an SCCM collection or whatever, you can get that information with PowerShell. So if you can get that list of computer names with PowerShell, why not do PowerShell-y things and be able to pipe information into this commandlet? So we support that as well. Now the server list happens to contain the exact same members, so it just works the exact same way. But it works that way. That text file is just a list of computer names inside of it. And actually, I think I have that hiding right here. Like there's just a list of computer names. So you're able to use a pipeline to do that stuff as well. And also the same way that we add guardrails to the creation of groups so we can't have duplicates, we can actually add guardrails to our functions as well, so that if you include a member that's currently not reporting into central management. So if you look at central management and you see all of the computers currently reporting into it, your deployment, it won't let you add a computer to a group that isn't currently reporting into central management. It makes no sense to do something like that. So we've added guardrails here. I do want to mention, I'll just mention it here up front. There we'll have a link at some point in this webinar to what will be a GitHub repository containing all of this demo code. So you'll have all these functions. You'll have all these examples that I'm running through right now. That way you can use them later in you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I don't think that GitHub repository is quite ready. So right now that link just goes to our central management documentation on docs.chocolatey.org. But once the repository is ready to go, if you bookmark that link, we will on the back end just switch where that short link is pointing to. So instead of going to the docs, you'll go to the repository. So I'm hoping that we'll have that very, very soon after the webinar here, like within the day. So look out for that. The next thing I wanted to talk about, since we've talked about managing groups, and Gary's done a really good job of going through all of the improvements, shall we say, to deployment plans, and we went through all those different things. I'm going to skip over the manual creation of a deployment plan. Gary's already covered that, but I wanted to stress that anything you can do in the web UI, more or less, you can do via the API. So creating your deployments can happen outside of the central management web interface as well. And if we take a look at how that works, we'll go over to these this deployment section, and then we'll just take a real quick look at a simple deployment. Now, I've done a little bit of work here, and maybe it's a little bit fancy, but it really makes things simple in that for a basic step inside of a CCM deployment, there's just a couple of pieces of information you need. You need the name of the step. You need the command, the Chocolatey command that you're going to run, whether that's install, upgrade, or uninstall. You need the target group that you're going to deploy this package to, and then you need the package ID. And you may want also to specify a version for that package, and you might want to specify that this version is a pre-release, or you leave the version off and take pre-release so that the latest pre-release version is the one that gets selected when that install or that upgrade command happens. So
Sure.
I've created a really simple new basic step function here that just takes this list of parameters and returns a hash table. It's very, very simple. So if we were to look and just return basic, we get our hash table of information back. So that's everything that a deployment plan needs to create that deployment. So in our case, I've got another function that says new CCM deployment plan that accepts the title for the overall deployment plan, and then we can start adding steps to the plan. In this example, we're going to add this basic step that we just created. And I'm also going to specify this parameter that I added for stage only. By default, if you leave that off, when you create this deployment plan, it moves it all the way to the ready stage and kicks it off right away, which might not be what you want. So I've added a little guardrail here that allows you to just stage this deployment. So if we were to run this line of code and then go over here to central management, and let's just refresh our deployment real quick. You can see we've got our new simple webinar example down here. And if we edit this deployment plan, you'll see we've got my upgrade VLC step. And if we take a look at it, we've got the proper command, we've got the proper group. Everything is how I want it to be. So you can get, again, more complex with these things as well. So here's a basic step that adds a couple of additional options. So this one, we're installing PuTTY. We specify a version. Now I made the version up here, 010. That's probably ancient or maybe doesn't even exist. And I've set the pre-release flag to true for this particular step. So if we run that, we can then create a deployment plan to use that step as well. So in this example, we're going to say deployment plan with options, specify our options, and then again, we're just going to stage that deployment. And that dot, why did that dot? Oh, because my group is wrong. Because I didn't run. I was anticipating creating a group in the web UI, and I didn't do that. There we go. Let me just rerun that real quick. There. So now if I go back to the deployment plans, we should see with options, we'll have two of them because it created the deployment plan without a step. So let's just look at this one. So again, if we look at this step now, we added this version, we added the version to it, and we've added the pre-release option as well. So the actual command that gets run client side once the agent picks it up is that upgrade command for PuTTY with the version and the pre-release flag in place. And we've set the server group as well.
Yeah, so you could quite quickly replicate something like the outdated deployments, or just a plan to upgrade everything that's on a computer.
Yeah, you
that sort of
absolutely can. And just to demonstrate that you can mix and match steps and have as many steps as you want, this final deployment plan here just takes those two steps that we've previously created and makes one more deployment, and that deployment will have 2 steps in it instead of 1 step. So if we take a look at that, we can see that we've got our upgrade VLC hub and our basic step with our options. So using the API, you can really start to interact with other systems. You can really start to have external forces affecting what's happening inside of central management. So as an example, here's one that does an advanced deployment just to show you that you can mix and match those steps as well. So in this case, we just created an advanced step, and I'm going to stage this deployment, and we'll just see that you can do advanced steps that have PowerShell steps inside them as well. And then there's the script that I've written. So you can mix and match those basic steps with those advanced steps. And as part of that, because you can use the API to do this stuff, and you can start to have external things start to affect what happens inside of central management in terms of deployments, you can start to write scripts that look a little like this. So what are we doing here? So I've got a function that I've written. And again, all of this stuff will be available on the repository after the webinar once we get everything pushed up there. But I've got this function called test load disk space that accepts an array of computer names and a threshold parameter. So what this does by default is it goes out to whatever computer name is in that parameter, and by default it returns true if the disk space is low on the C drive disk space is lower than 40%. So if you've got less than 40% disk space, this is going to come back as true. If it's not, it's going to come back as false. So what this script does is it adds the CCM group that you want to add the computers to. So in this case, I want to create a CCM group called load disk space for these computers. Yep. Any computer that comes back true, I want to add them to a load disk space group. So the very first thing I do is create that group. And then what I do is based on whether these come back as true or false, I want to add those group members. So, and again, this is where PowerShell becomes really, really awesome. I can just say, hey, all that stuff from that data object, give me just the computer names off of it. And that satisfies the member parameter of add CCM group computer. So we've gone away. We've given a parameter for computer names. We've given it an array of computer names that we want to check. We've created a group that any computers with low disk space are going to be added to. And then let's create a deployment that automatically runs a script to clean up the disk space on those computers. So what we have is a script block here that really simply just says, hey, I'm going to start cleanup on whatever computer name happens to be running on right now. And then in this example, I'm going to run clean manage like the disk cleanup utility with a very low disk parameter. And that cleans up a very specific list of things on the C drive silently. So it's something that you can automate. Now, if you've got a utility tool like you pay for tree size free or you pay for Winterstat, those utilities have command lines that you can run to clean up the disks. Or if you have very specific directories that you want to clean out, you can write that PowerShell code here, remove item, whatever, recurse force. If you want to do that, it's really, really flexible because it's whatever PowerShell you want. For our example here, I just wanted to kick off a process and have it be really, really quick. So I said, let's just run clean manager.exe with that very low disk parameter. So that's what we do, and that's our script. And again, because I can create an advanced step really quickly with the API and this function, that's just what I do. I say, hey, in this variable, put my step. And we're going to say it's an automated step, give it a nice descriptive name, set the group that I want and in the script that I want to run. And then let's create a deployment plan for that. So in order to do that, what I am going to do actually is flip over here and go here. Because I have got a Windows VM. I'm going to do it on my VM here. So what we're going to do, we'll just do this and we'll say computer name. Say
Stevie, that's not very clear. Could you maybe zoom that in again as well?
Yep, absolutely. Let me go here. Did that get a little bit bigger?
If you could, it'd make it a little bit bigger again.
Yeah, let's see.
That's fantastic. Yeah,
Is that good? All right.
that's good.
Bigger is better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to test my disk space against these two computers here. I've got two computers in my environment here, one called client box and one called demo server. So I'm just going to run this really quickly. And once everything wakes up, it's going to create that low disk space group. And then if we take a look inside of central management, we've got that low disk space group. Apparently my demo server has less than 40% disk space available. And we'll go to deployment plans and we'll look. And this time I didn't pass that stage only parameter when I kicked off my deployment. When I run the script, I want it to immediately go and kick off the deployment and start working. And that's what we see here. So now if we look at this deployment, you can see I've named it something that's very, very apparent that this came from automation somewhere else, because I've called it an automated deployment and I've even timestamped it when the deployment got created. So within a couple of seconds of the script running, the deployment gets created. So you know pretty much when that automation ran, when that deployment got created. And then if we look at the details of the deployment, as soon as I find my mouse, there it is. We've got that automated step as well. So we've even very clearly named the step that says, hey, we're going to run this thing on this group. And then this step is also active. And if we look on the server at the processes, yes, the disk cleanup utility is actually running. Now, I'm not going to waste time waiting for it to finish. I'm just going to kill that process. And in killing that process, that's going to make the step finish. And then here in just a second, this should come back as successful. And then the overall deployment will be marked as successful as well. So we'll just go all the way back to the deployment plan. I don't want to waste too much time waiting on that to be yeah, so there it shows success. And I do want to highlight one thing with advanced deployment steps that we haven't touched on, that maybe folks haven't seen this before, just seeing central management for the first time. I wanted to touch on the logging that happens inside of a deployment. So when you drill all the way into a step inside of a deployment, we'll list all the computers individually on that step. So when you set a target group, if that target group has 1 machine or 100 machines, when it gets to the individual step section of the deployment plan, when you drill in far enough, we list all of the individual computers and what the success code was for that computer. And one of the really, really powerful, great, awesome things that I love so much about central management is this view log button, because there's nothing more frustrating than something going wrong and you having to go hunt for Y, we ship exactly what happened with Chocolatey back to the central management web interface, so that if you've got a package installation step that fails on a computer or a couple of computers, you can go to the log and see exactly what happens. Now, in the case of this advanced step, we've omitted the script that we're going to run, and if there was a secret included, it wouldn't be shown here. It would still be marked as, you know, our secret placeholder. We won't admit that to the log. But that right host that I had in my script that ran right here, it shows up in the log as well. So if your commands have output, that'll be logged as part of the advanced step. So for
And you
Chocolatey packages, any errors that happen inside of a package, those things will be in this log file. For advanced step, any output that PowerShell has, that will be in the log file as well, minus any passwords or secrets or anything like that. Deployments are super, super powerful. They are a ton of fun. And as you can see, when you start to bolt the API to this stuff and really start thinking outside the box and saying, hey, I've got this situation that I need to remedy. If I just write some code to poke the API with my problem, we could solve it really, really quickly. The
Absolutely.
APIs for deployments are fantastic. I love them.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the script you ran there was going from a machine and scanning machines and then creating deployments based on that. We've done similar things in the past where we've gone out and created groups within deployments themselves and added computers there, so you can do the reporting from either side. You can pass the logs via the API in order to get your data out of any advanced step that you want to generate data and then retrieve that later. So
Yeah.
it really is
Yeah,
super
maybe
powerful.
you need to, you know, create a support ticket or something like that.
Yep.
With your failures, you can really quickly get the logs, both via the web interface and via the API. It's super, super handy. One thing that Gary didn't touch on, because it didn't come out in 0.12.0, it came out in 0.11.0, was the ability to import and export deployment plans from within central management. So if we took a look at this automated deployment, this plan that we created just a moment ago, you'll notice there's an export button here. So if we took the deployment plan, we can export this to JSON. And then when we open this file, and hopefully it opens in the right thing, it might not let me open it in Notepad++, because that'll be a little faster. So you can get a JSON file of that deployment plan. And if you've got JSON like this, you can, and the fact that you can import these JSON plans back into central management. So if we go to deployment plans and we click on import here, we can drag and drop our JSON file, or we can select it and we can get that deployment plan back, and here it is. So it's real quick to import this stuff. But if you've got that JSON file and you're a DevOps type team, why don't you rub a little DevOps on your deployments, right? So outside of the central management web interface, you could have workflows where you could do something like this, where you could have a repository for storing your JSON files. And then if we wanted to come in here, and I've already done some work, so we'll create a new pull request, and we're going to come over here from this webinar branch, and we're going to create this pull request, and we can see what happens. So based on this developer get JSON file, I've added a step as part of this deployment plan. So I'm going to create this pull request, and I'm just going to type something in here, and I'm going to create this pull request. But where the magic happens is there's a GitHub action that's running on the back end of this. And then what happens with that is it checks for things like whether your JSON is valid, whether there's any target groups, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm not seeing my checks running. Why is that running? That's interesting. Why is my workflow not running?
We may have to cut from this one then and move on if it's.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That's a bummer.
Yeah, it's a shame because that is a cool demo.
Running.
Being
Yeah,
able to PR things in, get the tests going, and then yeah, doing it live.
Demo gods are mean sometimes, but yeah. Anyways, what that would have done when you hit merge, it would have shown up in here as a deployment plan. I don't know why the action's not running currently, and I'm not going to take the time to figure it out. But that's it for deployments. That's what I wanted to show off. I'm happy to take questions here. If there's anything for deployments, we can hold them for later. I know, James, you've got some really awesome stuff around licensing that we want to show off. So yeah, I'm happy to crack on into that if you want.
We do have a question, but I think we'll hold it to the end.
Sure.
We'll do the kind of Q&A at the end. So yeah, let's move on to James.
Sure. I just wanted to say as well, just to branch out to Michael's question that just got answered by Gary. I think I know exactly what you're on about because I was talking to Stevie about it the other day, and having stuff like that would be fantastic. But yeah, we're gonna jump into more demos and have fun, and then we'll come back to questions and whatnot. So yeah, we were just saying we're going to talk about licensing real quick. Yeah, we've obviously got licenses as part of Chocolatey Central Management, as part of a Chocolatey for Business deployment. There's very little actual information available on the management GUI. So you've obviously at the top here got your managed computer count. So we've got a very, very reasonable 3 out of 100 nodes used, which, not bad, could be better. We're obviously a little bit less than optimal, but there's not much else actually available there. One of the things that I was hoping we'd show off today, and we will, if that's all right, is the Swagger document that was mentioned in at least one of the answers we did earlier, which is essentially the roadmap to the REST API that we have available for the Chocolatey management stuff. So you can just nip in here and see everything you want. Happily, right at the top here, we can see there's a bunch of additional information available on the Chocolatey license that you've got installed. So what you could do is similar to the stuff we've seen already. You could pop into PowerShell and write something like, well, let's bring it up as well. Get CCM license status, which is very similar to a lot of the stuff that Stevie was showing earlier, but just basically goes out, calls the API a bunch of times, and you can see if we display that right next to the Swagger document, that it is pretty much exactly what we have there, with the exception of getting all computers just to see how many we've got, how many used nodes we have. But yeah, so it's super easy, and obviously we've hidden a lot of the work away there in invoke CCM API. But yeah, just calling the API in order to get additional data is a pretty handy thing. And that follows back into all of the other examples that Stevie was showing with adding groups, adding deployments. And this is also where, as mentioned in one of the answers earlier, although we do have a lot of API calls that you can make, not all of them are publicly supported. The ones that are publicly supported will show up here and they'll be available for sure. Gary and Paul can obviously talk to that a little further if they would like. So yeah, so you could do something like the aforementioned get CCM license status in order to show your license stuff like expiration. You could schedule some kind of command like that in order to run and show you this regularly, or alert you if you had an expiration that was coming up, if we didn't alert you first. And you could even do something like scripting an email to get sent out to departments that would find that useful. But emails are a little bit boring, a little bit old school these days. So I think it's fair to say that everyone else in the call knows that I'm a huge fan of scripting problems away, or even just scripting problems. But not everyone else is quite so into that sort of thing. So we've demonstrated a few ways of using the management GUI. We've demonstrated a few ways of using the REST API in scripts. Is there a kind of midpoint? And I'd say, yeah. So talking about stuff like chatbots, And I should hasten to add that this is not ChatGPT or any other LLM style thing, however many jokes I may make about ChockGPT. But you've probably got some kind of chat at work, probably. Something like Slack or Discord, Teams, or even IRC. Chatbots, if you're not familiar with them, work with the idea that you and others can interact with scripts in a fairly easy way with a program that you've probably already got open, and people who don't otherwise have access to stuff can be granted access with sufficient permissions. So if you had something like that, you could go in here and do something similar to license. And here, obviously, set this up earlier. We can show that we've got that same exact command that's going to come through and hopefully show us useful things. It's not a particularly new idea, but it's something that we've used ourselves at Chocolatey to, and I think I can say this because we've got a little of this in our community Discord, to display information and to just, again, expose things that are traditionally locked behind doors for ops to people who don't otherwise have access or should only be allowed access to certain things. So kind of melding the DevOps side together, or ChatOps in this case.
Yeah, I think the ChatOps thing is a really fun example of using the API, because this is really powerful, and this is really empowering too, because you might want to give access to non-technical folks, right? Like somebody in accounting or purchasing could run this license command to figure out when the Chocolatey license is going to expire or where they're at in terms of nodes. So they could reach out to us to true up or get more, or whatever the case may be, right? So you can start to give management level people that have stepped away from the code, that don't do that work anymore, or that just aren't in a technology role at all, the power to do things inside of central management with chat ops. Like this is another arrow in your quiver to make things easier for your organization.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, go back to, so gosh, where to start? The thing we're using here is something called Poshbot, which Chocolatey supports and historically have enjoyed using, originally by Brandon Olin or Dev Black Ops, and various other contributors, of course. So this is a super nice chatbot that is written entirely in PowerShell, so it integrates really nicely with all the stuff we've been talking about. So we'll just show off some of the ideas that we've shown already today. And yeah, as I say, we use that here and have a good time, although not like this, oddly. So yeah, so what we could do is we can just quickly show off that, similar to other stuff. We're going to refer to this chatbot as a CCM in this case because it makes it fun to add, but we can say something like, hey, add group, and we can call that Steve's webinar group. Webinar group, how about that? We should see that that will show up over here. Hopefully. There we go. So we've got a nice card that shows what's going to be on there. So that's neat. You can also do stuff like checking the license status. And one of the things that I was playing with was the idea that you could have, to drop into a slightly later portion of the thing, we have a bunch of commands, and we've actually exposed these through a separate module in order to be able to not expose the stuff to the people who don't need it. Poshbot has a lot of controls around who you want to grant permissions to, what kind of permissions are there by default, and the like. And you can actually just import any PowerShell module and then use it, and it'll try and figure out permissions based on the verb being used, which is neat. But in this case, we've just got a get license status, which goes and creates the card that we see there, because obviously PowerShell objects will attempt to be passed and shown, but they're not always going to be there. But you could do something like this. We mentioned earlier that you could have scheduled tasks that would go and say, oh, hey, if you've got not too many days, you could actually have something like warning only and schedule that to go out every day and ping you when you come under a certain amount of days or something along those lines.
Awesome. Yeah, I really like the chat ops stuff. That every time I've played with chat ops, it's been super fun. We also kind of got into the weeds a little bit, right? When we were putting
That's fair to say.
together all these different demos and things like that. And we kind of asked ourselves, what's an ask from our customers that we currently don't have natively in the product, but maybe if we put our thinking caps on a little bit, we could come up with a way to do it within central management deployments. And I think we've come up with something really, really cool. And do you want to switch gears away from chat
Yeah,
ops,
sure. Let's
James?
rush
And
through.
yeah,
It's
and let's show off this the piece de resistance, if you will. This is my favorite demo of the day coming up. This is
Sure.
absolutely awesome.
And happily, it actually answers a couple of questions that we've had. So we had at least one question from Rico asking if you could have people able to self-service, essentially, deployments. Yeah, you could absolutely write something to do that, even doing it through something like this. Obviously, the interface wouldn't be half as good as Chocolatey GUI and the on desktop self-service stuff, but very possible to do. You could definitely make a nice interface for that if you wanted with the API. But yeah, to jump into the fun bit and the question that I've marked for such a long time now, thank you for your patience, Ethan, as something that we're definitely going to talk about. Yeah, one thing that we get asked about a lot is the idea that you can notify users, and we've actually got a feature in feature request or an issue for this, but it's not on the cards quite yet. So we had a quick shot at doing something similar with available tools. We've actually used Burnt Toast, which is a PowerShell module by one of our colleagues, Josh King. So we've got a very basic deployment with notification plan here, because obviously having users notified that there are upgrades happening, that there is stuff about to change on their machine can be useful. And being able to tell them stuff like, hey, we did some updates, you're probably going to need to restart. Also great. Yeah, so we've got this here. We have an example machine, and this is going to be fine. But we'll just kick this deployment off. And we've actually got 3 steps here.
Yeah,
obviously,
that's good.
A basic notify user. So we're going to tell the user that there's about to be upgrades and things happening. We're going to upgrade some packages, in this case, 1 package. And then we're going to tell everyone that everything's good and you can go for it. We're using a scheduled task in this case. I'm actually going to kick this off before we start talking about it, just so that we've got that additional time. And I suspect there was an answer to the question, how can we make deployments happen faster earlier? I suspect the answer was you can adjust a variable, and that is what we've done here to make this a little faster.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to kick that off.
There we go. And you set that to what, like 20 seconds or something like that? 10 seconds. It's very, very
It's obscenely low.
Yeah,
would not recommend for that in
It's
production.
very, very low. It's that
But we
fast.
can see here that we've got
yeah.
our notification. And then in a few seconds, with any luck, we'll see.
Yeah.
In this case, as I said, we're sorry to answer the question that's just popped up. What's the tool to notify user? We are using an advanced deployment that is calling a module called Burnt Toast to generate the notification you just saw pop up, and one that you'll hopefully see again in a second. It's a great PowerShell module. We're currently using a preview that it's a preview, put it that way,
Yeah.
but it's very pretty, very excellent. I suspect there are other things that you can use, such as the PS app deploy toolkit, and you can probably go even further than that. In terms of triggering, we're actually using a scheduled task running as the user's group, and we're triggering that only if the user is logged in. So any user who is currently logged in will get a notification like this, which is kind of neat. So there we see magic.
There it is. It's all done. It's all done. Yeah. The PSF deploy toolkit thing is pretty interesting. I've helped a customer in the past wrap those in Chocolatey packages, and it actually works fairly well, just natively as a Chocolatey package as well. It can get a little bit dodgy if you're using the background service and having that toast notification actually show up for the correct user. They tend to want to be shown for whatever the background service agent is running as. But PSF deploy toolkit wrapped up in a Chocolatey package actually works fairly well. and even has the added benefit of the deferments piece that ships as part of PS App Deploy Toolkit. So you can pop that notification up, and a user can say, no, I don't want this right now. Well, that actually can fail the package install if they click no. So if you're doing it inside of a deployment or something like that, there are interesting ways that you could potentially use like an advanced step to control, instead of using a basic step, use an advanced step and have a custom exit code. And there's things that we can do to make things happen there. And of course, if you're a Chocolatey customer and you want to implement any of the stuff you've seen here, or you want help with, PS App Deploy Toolkit and specifically, reach out to us. Put in a support ticket. We're always willing and excited to bend Chocolatey to our will in interesting ways. It's with a ton of fun. We love doing this sort of thing. So yeah, if anything here seems interesting to you, you want some more information, you want some help implementing it, by all means, reach out, and we will absolutely be on hand to help you do whatever you need to do.
Absolutely. Gary, I'm happy you've marked a question as answering live. I'm happy to try and answer that one if you want to jump on. I think we're at the stage where we can take general questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Fire away. We're coming to the end of this.
I'm happy to go. Yes. So the question that was in the chat was with regard to, is there any plans to automate the license upgrades further? Like the client agents automatically check to see if a new license is available in the repo and automatically installs it. So the way that we tend to recommend licenses are managed in Chocolatey Central Management is through a license package. So every time you get a new Chocolatey license.xml file from the sales team, support team, you would wrap that into a Chocolatey package, and then ultimately that would just be another outdated package that's now available based on what's in your repository. So the new functionality of Chocolatey Central Management is you can right click on a package, or you can click on a package and say update this package on all the computers that have that. So it's a reasonably quick process to go through that and deploy that package onto all your machines. Now, based on what Stevie and James has shown, the integration with the license API, you could automatically deploy that when you know a license has become expired and when you've generated a new package. But the slightly longer answer is that we have lots of conversations internally about all these things and how we can integrate things and what things that we can make better. And what it comes down to is, unfortunately, time and effort and prioritization. I would love to be able to talk about some of the stuff that we've spoken about internally and what we'd love to do in Chocolatey Central Management, but we can't. What we do like to hear are the ideas about the pain points. So kind of Stevie alluded to this. If there are specific pain points around license management, around package creation, around package deployment, we would love to hear from them so that we can help prioritize the ongoing work that we're doing in Chocolatey Central Management. There's been lots of discussions around that sort of thing, Amar. But if there's any specific things that you are interested in, definitely follow up via support or via our community Discord, and we can discuss these things further.
Awesome. I think one of the things I've been doing is very diligently answering questions, which means there's none left at the end. But we do have a few that are coming in now that I'll put to the panel here today. The first one is there any cost-saving metrics calculated to show time savings, cost savings, ROI info, that kind of thing?
I'm trying to think if we have anything. Yeah, I've seen some ROI stuff. The best thing for you to do is reach out to sales, and they can get you any information they have. Off the top of my head, I can't think of where we have any ROI stuff published. I know I've seen some internal things alluding to ROI, but nothing that I've seen publicly. So I think your best bet is going to be to reach out to sales and ask those questions. Go to chocolatey.org/contact and fill out a sales form and ask those questions there, or the general contact form, and a member of our sales team will be able to help you out there.
I think part of Chocolatey, I was going to say Chocolatey's issue, but it's a blessing and a curse, is that none of the Chocolatey products phone home. So we don't really have any metrics in how our customers are using the product. We have no automated metrics. So that's great for our customers, because once you deploy that internal to your organization, that's where it stays. None of that data is getting uploaded to Chocolatey servers, or any private information is getting sent away to us. But if you look at the other side of things, it's very difficult for us then to know how much people are using certain parts, how much time they may be saving, and do some calculations around that. So that's where the difficulty comes in. But that's absolutely something that we're committed to keeping, is no phoning home. But as I said, on the other side of things, that makes it difficult to provide some of that information. So we need to kind of come up with different ways of looking at kind of industry trends, what people are doing, and calculate it from that. So, but as Stevie said, sales will be able to hopefully provide some information for that. The other question is, and I haven't vetted any of these because they're actually coming in quite quick now.
Alexander's one's an interesting one, so I'd be happy to take that one.
Okay, absolutely. You go for that then. I was just reading that just now. So Gary, you can answer that.
Alexander's one is regarding the initial enrollment, if you like, of a computer into Chocolatey Central Management. So what he's describing is that as it currently stands, Chocolatey Central Management is great at doing management of computers once you know about the computer and once you know what you want to deploy to it. But what do you do on the initial, I've just got a brand new machine and I want to set stuff up onto it? So I described in the piece that I talked about these foundational elements of Chocolatey Central Management, the being able to know what computers you've got, reporting in information, and then creating deployment plans and being able to create deployment plans in a much easier way. So again, some of the discussions we have are then focusing in on the initial enrollment into Chocolatey Central Management, because what I can envision and what we've discussed internally is those, I mentioned them earlier, we had the concept of a smart group or a dynamic group. So I can envision the enrollment of a computer into Chocolatey Central Management automatically being assigned to a deployment group, which is then saying, this is a brand new machine, go and do this templated deployment that installs all of these things. So the short answer, Alexander, is yes, lots of discussions internally about some of those things, but we did have to get to this point where some of the foundational elements are in play so that we can then start building in those higher level, more complicated functions. Absolutely something that we'd love to do within Chocolatey Central Management, yes. So keep your eyes peeled, is what I would say.
Another question we've got here from John Ambrose. Gary, I think this is maybe one for you as well, not because you know the answer, but because we've talked about this. Is there a planned fix for the Chocolate agent giving up and contacting CCM when it's unreachable for a period of time? Currently, it requires a restart of the Chocolate agent service once connectivity is restored, and be that via VPN or the user sleeping the computer coming back to the office. So I know we have discussed this.
We have, but James, did you I saw your finger going up. Is that something that you were looking to answer, or
happy
for you to?
Yeah,
if you have more recent context, then that's going to be better, possibly. But
well, I mean, I can from a. I'm interested to hear what you say from a support solutions perspective, and then I can say what we've gone on top of that.
Sure. Okay, so from the top then, as far as I'm aware, we don't currently have a planned fix, although Gary and Paul may spoil me there in a second. Obviously, yeah, Chocolatey agent tries 3 times and then gives up. This is, to me, that's sort of okay behavior. What we've done in environments where we need it to continue retrying is we've created a scheduled task that will go and ensure that if it's not checked in, if it's failed recently, it will restart that service. And we've done that for our C4B Azure environment, for example, so that we can ensure that we are connecting the agent to the right place. There's also an issue open in GitHub currently. Thanks to Ryan for linking that to me, where there is an issue open. So I'm hoping that's what Gary and Paul are going to tell us about now.
So what I was going to say is that as is the case sometimes when I speak to James and I speak to Stevie, is they've highlighted problem areas with the current system, and they provided a mechanism to work around it. And to me, that is a failure of the product that we need to address, and this is one of those. So in the not too distant future, I can envision a version of Chocolatey Agent that has configuration options for how many times it's meant to retry before giving up, whether there's a back off period, so it'll maybe try a minute and then 2 minutes and then 3 minutes, so it gradually backs off in terms of how often it will check and the how long it takes to do those checks. So there's absolutely discussions internally around that side of things, again, just to make the onboarding and continued usage of Chocolatey Agent and Chocolatey Central Management that bit better. So if there is an issue, James, and you've linked to it or you're linking to it, that would be great. But yes, keep an eye on those issues, the open issues that we have around those. And yeah, I would love to see those things being squashed so that the overall experience is better. Yes. So thanks to John, I think, for that question.
Yeah.
And John,
apologies. Oh, no, go ahead, James.
I was going to say, if you want to go and add your voice to the ticket to the issue, that would be fantastic. We really appreciate when people do that.
And if anybody else is interested in that particular issue, maybe they're having it and they don't have something to add, you can actually follow on GitHub as well. So that if there's any updates to it, you'll get notified. Unfortunately, John, I can't complete your question. The button doesn't work for me.
I can do that.
So,
yeah,
sorry.
James can do it.
Yeah, I was going to say somebody. There we go. Awesome. So that goes away. Hopefully that answers your question, John. We've got 2 more questions, and we're kind of running up against time, so I'm going to just take these 2. And then we'll kind of close off the webinar today. So the second last one, for a license aspect, if the agent gets removed off the device, does that free up a license count?
No.
It does.
It doesn't. So
the agent, no.
So if Chocolatey Agent is removed, Chocolatey Agent is no longer reporting into Chocolatey Central Management, but that computer still exists in Chocolatey Central Management. So therefore, the license is still tied up, even though the Chocolatey Agent is no longer reporting in. Now, we do have a concept within Chocolatey Central Management of a cleaning up of a stale computer. So if a computer reaches a configurable period of time, since it hasn't checked in, then that computer will be removed within Chocolatey Central Management. But it's not it doesn't happen immediately. So if you needed to free up a license immediately, you would knowingly remove the agent from from the client machine, and then you would delete the computer in Chocolatey Central Management. And at that point, the license would be freed up, ready to be used by another machine. But if you are happy just to wait, if you've got some of these ephemeral environments that you're spinning things up, then eventually they will be removed automatically from Chocolatey Central Management. But there's a period of time you have to wait before that happens.
Right.
Awesome. Okay. And our final question is, are there plans to automate the install and updates of Apex packages for non-admin accounts through Chocolatey? I thought I would maybe answer that, mainly because I have a number of packages. I can maintain packages, and a few of them are Apex packages. But I don't know if they'll install on a non-admin system. So that part I'm not entirely sure, mainly because I haven't tried it. But you can absolutely install and manage Apex packages, or Apex packages within a Chocolatey package on the end user's system, your endpoint. So that can already be done. But as I said, the only aspect for that, you've mentioned non-admin specifically. I'm unsure if that will work on in a non-admin context, mainly because I just simply have not tried it. But Chocolatey CLI will run for non-admin accounts for packages that it can work with. Your mileage may vary with it, but there is an option to do that.
It also depends on the
context.
Yeah, it depends on the context too. I know I've helped one customer that it's been a while ago now, but they had an application that installed to the user profile. Now, this was an application that wasn't an AppX installer, it was just an executable. I think it might have actually been Signal. Come to think of it, maybe that was the application that we were dealing with. Or regardless, it installed the app data, but they were using the background service. So Chocolatey was putting the installation of that application into the user profile for the account that was running the Chocolate agent service on the machine. So what we ended up doing was using the, I think it's environment user context variable, that gives you the actual username of the person that said Choco install or Choco upgrade, whoever ran Chocolatey, that user. And then we were able to take that, build the path correctly, and then let Signal do its thing, or whatever the app was. I think it was Signal, do its thing, and then just use some PowerShell and move item, take it from over here and put it over here, and fix any desktop shortcuts with code as well. So it's a little bit involved in terms of a Chocolatey package, but a Chocolatey package is just PowerShell at the end of the day. So if you can get all the information you need, you can make the Chocolatey package do whatever you want.
Cool. Okay, that's our last question today. Has anybody got anything on the panel that we haven't shown today you wish we had, or anything to say before we finish? James, you look like you're just really no. Okay. Has anybody got anything that we haven't shown today, that you really wish we had done? Given we've only had the time that we've had.
I think there's going to be a few more examples in the repository we mentioned earlier than we showed today. They're pretty cool. I recommend digging into them, but I'm very biased in that regard. So maybe you don't trust me.
Okay. All right, cool. What we'll do then is we will wrap up the webinar for today. So yeah, it's thanks to everybody in the panel today. Thanks to Gary for taking us through those release notes for Chocolatey Central Management 0.12.0. Thanks to James and Stevie for taking us through all the GUI awesomeness of Chocolatey Central Management. You see what I did there? And I hope everybody who's watching, you picked up some tips and tricks how to get the best from Chocolatey Central Management as well. If you're not a Chocolatey for Business customer and you want to utilize some of the awesome features and the use cases that you saw today, and see how Chocolatey Central Management helps streamline the software management in your organization, go to our website, chocolatey.org, and click the big Schedule a Demo button. And remember as well, you can keep up to date with all the things Chocolatey in a couple of different ways. We run 2 live streams every month on the first and third Thursday. Our third Thursday live stream has changed a little bit. So if you've come along to that before and thought, that one's not for me, then please come along to the next one. And you'll see that we've actually changed the format entirely. You can also go to chocolatey.org/events and you can find out more about it from there as well. You can also keep in touch by joining us on Discord, subscribing to us on YouTube, or following us on Twitter or X, Blue Sky, Mastodon, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitch. And you can find all those links at the bottom of our homepage, chocolatey.org. From everybody here at Chocolatey Software, thank you for spending time with us today. We appreciate everything our customers and our community do for us, and we hope to see you all again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jim.